Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bells Must Ring podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Rice, here with my usual co host, Arnav Sarkar. Rutgers has started to round out its coaching tree a little bit, especially on the defensive side of the ball, as they got Travis Johansson to be their defensive coordinator last week. In the past, like 3 days, they've landed three defensive assistants. Adam Cox, who's going to be the safeties coach, um, Eric Finney, who's going to be the quarterbacks coach, and Joe Woodley, who doesn't have a designated role on the roster just yet. I personally believe he's going to be the linebackers coach because he was the head coach over at Drake in the FCS. Linebackers tend to be a little bit of the quarterback of the defense, quote unquote. So if there's any position that I think would be best suited for him, it would probably be linebackers coach. We still have Charlie Noonan as the interior defensive line coach, the defensive tackles coach. So we're pretty much only looking for like smaller positional coaches and defensive end coaches, if I'm not mistaken. But let's talk a little bit about what Rutgers is getting in each of these hires. Sorry, just take my outline a little bit to load up. So Rutgers lands three defensive staffers in 2 days. Drake head coach Joe Woodley, the one that doesn't have quite a position yet, worked with current Rutgers defensive coordinator Travis Johansson during their time at Grandview. He spent 9 years as the Grandview defensive coordinator. Then he spent about 5 years as the head coach of Grandview, 72-5 during that time. He moved up to Drake, where he was for one season as the head coach over there. He led his team to the FCS playoffs in that one season as the Drake head coach. He actually does have a long track record of developing players because overall he has coached 60 all-conference players, 7 All-Americans at their respective levels, and 6 Conference Players of the Year. And he was named to ESPN's list of 30 coaches who will define the next decade in college football. Some other names that were on that list, you find guys like Kirby Smart and other well-known head coaches like that. So to be named to those ranks, it's really something incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean, I certainly agree. He definitely has a lot of experience at Grandview at the defensive coordinator position, where he worked alongside Johansson, splitting the DC roles, and then he became the head coach at Grand Valley, moving over to Drake. Had a really good record too. I mean, over at Grand Valley, 72-5, which is not losing in the regular season, so really, really good.
Not once, not losing a singular game in the regular season.
Right, only in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I mean that shows that they're one of the best at that level. I mean, that's really, really good, obviously. So then going into Drake, taking them to the playoffs in the FCS, obviously losing to South Dakota, which is, connection because, that's Johansson's team. But Drake had a very good defense, third fewest points and yards per game in the Pioneer Football League. So that shows his experience. Obviously he's making the jump, and his position is unknown at this time. I think they still have to sort that out, but he's coached a lot of really good players, like you mentioned, and that shows. 60 all-conference, 7 FCS All-American, 6 conference players of the year. So and to make the list of 30 coaches to define the next decade, that's really good. I mean, that includes like all levels. I mean, like you mentioned, Kirby Smart, some of the names on that list. To be on that list, like, that shows that he really has potential, and his career is probably only getting started. I mean, if he can really do a good job here at Rutgers, sky's the limit. You know what I mean? Like, this is his first major job now, even though he's going from head coach to assistant. But yeah, like I said, if he does a good job, like, who knows? Maybe he could rise the ranks again, become like a power forward, DC or something like that, maybe head coach again one day. So it's all linear, but it's a really promising hire for sure.
The one thing that we kind of noticed with all these hires is that Channel has shown in the past that he likes to hire former head coaches, guys that he can trust to essentially run a practice in his absence. And maybe not is the best, maybe that's not the best way to put it, but he likes to leave guys that he likes to have guys that he knows can be leader of men and have been leader of men in the past. So it's definitely interesting to see him take the step down from head coach to defensive assistant. But I feel like if you have the chance to jump all the way to the power four, essentially leapfrogging the group of five in that entire realm of Division One, I feel like you have to take it at that point. That's what Johansson did. He went from head coach to defensive coordinator. But yeah, I mean, some people were kind of like worried about us grabbing all these different FCS guys, and I'm like, if they can coach, they can coach.
Right,
If they
exactly.
if they can take that talent and maximize it, there's no reason to believe that they can't take our talent and maximize it.
Right. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, like no matter what you think about, Rutgers, where they're at as a program, I mean, they're still at the end of the day an FBS Power Four Big Ten team. Like, that's not nothing. Even, I mean, you might not want to think about it like that, but they are probably not even probably their talent level at least definitely is better than the FCS. I mean, it's definitely higher than the Group of Five. I mean, it's in the Big Ten. I mean, yeah, Rutgers struggles a lot in the Big Ten, but that they're still very high quality players. And, these coaches have maximized the amount of talent they've had at the FCS, made them into some of the better teams in the FCS. And, there's no reason to think that they can't do the same with Rutgers and elevate, Big Ten level talent, within their conference.
Yeah, especially the fact that we are the non-conference warriors.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We
Yeah. That.
we handle we handle our business against FCS teams pretty well. But
Right.
anyway,
Right.
so you know, if you could coach, you could coach. That translates to any level. I mean, you
Yeah.
take a look at what Kirk Signetti did at JMU, and he was able to translate that flawlessly to the Big Ten and win a national championship at Indiana. There's no reason to believe that these guys can't do the same. I understand it's probably going to be a little bit of an adjustment period for them. It is a big leap from the FCS to the Big Ten. But I feel like, 2-3 years time, everything goes right. We start recruiting well. We could see a return to the dark side.
Yeah. The dark side. I mean, I was just joking about how the Seahawks like have that name, and that used to be our name. But yeah, I mean, maybe perhaps, right? I
They
mean,
stole
like,
our name, man. They stole our
yeah.
name. Well, we kind of gave it to them, but they.
Yeah. I think that was like Hiroshimiak's defense, because I remember they just didn't have it on the graphics like at all last season. But honestly, the
Well,
way the
also
defense
they
was
deserve
playing,
it. So
yeah, I mean, they really didn't. Like they were, consistent letdown. But no, coaches like Woodley and our other, and then having Adam Cox as the safeties coach. I did the article on him. I mean, his biggest, his claim to fame, I guess, or his biggest experience is he's a graduate assistant under Phil Parker at Iowa. And if you know anything about Iowa football, I mean, their defense is, one of the top of in every single year in college football. Literally carries
man,
their team like most of the time. I mean, if not all the time. And yeah, I mean, that's so for him to have that kind of experience, he was also the safeties coach at Indiana State. He was the defensive coordinator at Drake this past season under Woodley. So again, another connection. So coming in as the safeties coach, I mean, that's another guy that you want. I mean, to have those types of experiences with with Iowa. I think he also was the GA for in the NIA or somewhere else. So Central Michigan before that, and then Iowa, and then yeah, and then in Indiana State safeties coach, Drake defensive coordinator. Again, really good defense. They ranked third in the Pioneer League and allowed only 17.7 points per year. So that's another solid hire that the Scarlet Knights have been made. That they made, and a lot of alignment. I mean, you have Woodley coming in as the from the Drake head coach. Then you have Cox coming in as as their defensive coordinator, are going to be our safeties coach. So those two have familiarity with each other. And then then we get to Eric Finney, who was the South Dakota cornerbacks coach, coming in to become the corners coach here. And he, under Travis Johansson, he was coaching for them. Before that, he was quality control assistant, defensive backs coach at Cincinnati, corners coach at South Dakota. So then there's connection back to Travis Johansson again, and Woodley and Johansson also have connections. So it's like all these guys have connections with each other. Obviously, that's how they know each other. But it's like it's kind of different from what we're used to, I guess. With Greg Schiano would usually bring a bunch of people he knows, and now it's kind of like
well, actually, I'm very relieved at that fact, because I think he realizes that he needs fresh blood and fresh air in the program. Not just tapping into the same like repeat coaches that have been around the water cooler for a while. And unfortunately, I think since they have been in there so long, that opposing coaches have figured out how to combat that. Especially when you start bringing like new life into a program, you want younger guys, newer mentalities. I don't even really know how else to put it, but you want new concepts, new ideas. You don't want to just keep cycling through the same stale way of doing things. And I think we saw that with last year. I mean, he hired a retread, and the defense looked either completely lost or absolutely figured out the entire year. So it just wasn't a good look. And I think, I don't want to say it's like two extremes going in one direction, because last year, he fell back on old habits. He couldn't get what he wanted, so he fell back on old habits and, hired somebody that he's familiar with. And now this year, it's the complete opposite. He obviously didn't get who he wanted, because he was very in on Rob Arich and Vince Kears, who went elsewhere. Those were his like first candidates that he really reached out to, and he couldn't nab those. However, same amount of time goes by, and instead of falling back on old coaches and old mentalities, he finds these two. It's really like the complete polar opposite of the same search, same issues with the search, same taking too long, completely polar opposite outcomes.
Right, exactly.
It's the exact same process with somehow completely different outcomes.
Yeah, like when we kind of like had to fall back into Rob Smith and Zach Sparber, and everyone was like, I don't know how it's going to work, and obviously worked even worse than I think people anticipated. And
and here's another thing, just to kind of piggyback off that point. If you're really worried about bringing FCS coaches and throwing them into the fire at the Big Ten FBS level, can it really get any worse?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, yeah, exactly. Can it really get any worse than it was? I mean, it was historically bad. Like, it was just like, I mean, but I mean, people like, I'm of the belief that if you could play, you can play. And I think we've seen that too. Like, if you're good enough to make that jump, you can make it. But coaching, like, I mean, no question about it. Like, there's like,
oh yeah, if you can coach, you can coach.
There's still like an athleticism jump. There's a size difference. There's a reason why FCS teams aren't competitive against FBS teams, and it's a lot of it has to do with the size of the line, the athleticism, and all those things that don't even look like they should really play that big of a role. Like, those things take the FCS teams out of the games, even if they have good skilled players, even if they have a good quarterback at their level, even then. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Which that's just how it is, stuff, right? But like bigger, better, faster, stronger, more athletic teams tend to win. And then when you get to the higher level, the differences in receivers, the differences in pure talent. That's why like you have differences between Rutgers and like an Ohio State or like something like that. But anyway, I don't want to get into like a whole thing on that. But I mean, my point being, like, if you can coach, players still do make the jump though if you're talented enough to. We've seen that with Rutgers too. From the FCS or Group of 5 up. But for coaches, I mean, you're not on the you're coaching schemes. You're making players better. I mean, there's no reason to believe that if you can coach at the FCS for some reason, you can't coach in the Big Ten level. I mean, I think you absolutely can. Like, there's nothing stopping someone from, what I mean? If you're a good coach, you're a good coach, and in fact, you're inheriting better talent that's supposed to be able to compete at a higher level. So yeah, the competition's better, but your players are also better, and it's up to you as a coach to make them, fit and improve them enough where they can, play better than their overall talent level, and start to knock off the teams that are a little bit better than them. So I mean, yeah, there's no reason to believe that they can't. And also, you're right. I mean, there's really no way this could get worse. I mean, like I don't think,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't think it can get worse. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, people complained about the defense last year, and they had a right to. That defense was just completely horrid and absolutely abysmal to watch. Um, and the fact that they were able to hire somebody not in Greg's coaching tree, which I think is like the biggest thing to take out of this entire search.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
kind of like I take it as a little bit as like the old ball coach learning new tricks. Like, people say that old dogs can't learn new tricks. Well, apparently old ball coaches can. But the thing is, like, even if these hires don't pan out, I still don't even think that they're going to be as bad as the ones last year, because
That's true.
that was record-setting ineptitude. Like, that wasn't just, they weren't that good. Like, that was just
Yeah.
historically
Like
horrific.
750 yards against Oregon, like 7.6 yards per play. I mean, which is just obscene. Like, I mean, like I said, they couldn't cover anyone. They couldn't rush the passer. They couldn't stop the run. Like they couldn't cover any part of the field. Yards after the catch. I mean, there's like
Even
not really
if,
a single thing they did right. So it was like
yeah,
absolute disaster. Like the offense could score 30, whatever it was, like 28 against Iowa, more than probably most of the winning teams have scored against that defense. And Iowa goes for 38. Penn State offense plays a nearly flawless game. And, it sucks that we have to talk about the one mistake, because that really, yeah, I mean, that obviously in that situation really can't happen. But, to play a game like that and still lose, because your defense gets up 300 yards of rushing. And, I mean, it's just like,
can't stop a nosebleed.
yeah, like you're supposed to be able to be allowed to like not have to play a perfect game. And yeah, obviously the timing of that just sucks. But like, I mean, and you shouldn't have had to rely on that to beat Penn State or Minnesota or Iowa. You know what I mean? So like defense was so bad that even if the offense played, nearly flawlessly, like it wasn't good enough to win. So yeah, I mean, I think that even if these guys don't work out for whatever reason, or maybe it goes from really bad to just normal bad or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it'll work better than that. But even in the worst case scenario, it still brings the defense from historically bad to average bad. And
Well,
that's like
not even just that. But let's say Johansson is not even that good of a defensive coordinator. Obviously I'm not hoping that, but let's say he's just not that good.
right.
That doesn't mean that, Cox isn't a better safeties coach than what we had. That doesn't mean like, that doesn't mean
Finney's a better corners coach.
Finney isn't a better corners coach than what we had. I do think that David Rowe and Julian Campani were probably the two best position coaches that we had on that roster last year, because if you think about the two best positions on the defense last year and you really have to rack your brain about it, it was probably corner and probably defensive end, because
yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'll probably say so. I mean, like Weaver and O'Neal like did step up. They were good run stoppers. Corner, we had like Bo Masco. They were decent at times. I mean,
Miller wasn't too bad.
Yeah, Miller wasn't too bad. Henderson like wasn't great, honestly.
No,
but yeah,
he wasn't good either. But
yeah.
my point is, like, safeties last year were a complete disaster.
Oh yeah, they were like
the linebackers
leaving the
last
field
year.
open.
Yeah, the linebackers last year were a complete disaster, and the
Interior
defensive tackles
D-line,
last year were horrid. So
that's true. I would say the edge guys, like although they I think underperformed to expectations, and we want to see more pass rush, they definitely became really good run stoppers, and they played probably the best of positions on the defense because of that, and yeah, and corners too. I mean, the corners weren't like some of them weren't like half bad. You know what I mean? So like they were at least doing their job. So I agree with that analysis.
So my whole thinking was, if we're going to retain anybody on that previous defensive staff, I thought it was going to be Rowe or David Rowe or Julian Campani. Unfortunately, Rowe had left Rutgers to go take a job at Cincinnati. I mean, he probably saw the changing in literally everything and wanted out. And then Campenny, like the NFL calls, you got to answer. Like,
yeah, and he was like one of the only two that was like, besides like Noonan that was going to stay on the staff. But obviously, like that makes a lot of sense. So
I don't mind retaining Noonan either because Noonan is a very good recruiter or has been a very good recruiting tool. So I don't mind keeping him around. I still think we need to round out our defensive line. Our defensive line needs better coaching, better recruiters, better everything because last year was just not good. Not good from the big guys up front. But yeah, my whole point being is like even if the defensive coordinator, is still not very good, you might find a position coach who's good at what they do, and that position in particular might get better because let's be real, no position on that defense was really good at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a chance that one of these coaches, whether it's Finney, whether it's Cox, whether it's Woodley, I mean, could be a really quality assistant. Maybe you end up moving them up if Johansson doesn't work out. But I mean, by all indications, Johansson was also a very strong hire himself, like like we talked about the other day. So chances are, like, what I mean, like that also does work out to at least some extent. I mean, so yeah, definitely excited to see, and a lot of alignment, like I said. I mean, between Johansson and his staff, I guess. So yeah, and the staff with each other. I mean, between obviously Woodley and Cox worked together. Finney worked under him, and South Dakota's defense and Drake's defense were among the top FCS defenses. Both of them were playoff teams. Not exactly like the, I guess, NDSU, who just moved up to the FBS, by the way, or like, but South Dakota did beat South Dakota State last year, and they're both pretty good FCS teams, and both defenses were among the top in the FCS. So I mean, that shows like that shows what kind of coaches you're getting here, that these guys can win with the talent that they have, and to bring that up a level, and also have fresh ideas. I think that's going to be really good for the staff. I mean, maybe they all know each other, and that's obviously a good thing. But I mean, yeah, it's fresh ideas. They all know each other. Let's bring something different, here to the program, and something that's been proven that can win in the FCS. Let's see how it does. You bring the same schemes, the same ideas, up a level, and we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. I don't think we ran through the coaching history of Finney, the new cornerbacks coach. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. His last position was he was the corners coach at South Dakota, as we mentioned, the Travis Johansson connection. And before that, he was a quality control / defensive backs assistant at Cincinnati. So he actually does have a little bit of Power 4 experience, in the Big 12 with Cincinnati.
Right.
I think 2024 was their first year in the Big 12. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think it's been like a few seasons now, actually, but they finally kind of broke through, and they had their come up moment. I guess they struggle with the jump up again. That's what I mean. Like from the G5, they're one of the top teams, but now they had like a better season this past year with Cincinnati. But anyway, yeah. I mean, in terms of Finney, he started their quality control assistant.
Well, he didn't start there. He was a defensive backs assistant and defensive backs coach at various community colleges and stuff like that for a long time before he got picked up by Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, he goes there as the defensive backs assistant, and then he goes to South Dakota to be the cornerbacks coach. It is kind of like a meteoric rise for somebody that actually played his college ball in the Big Ten at Illinois. Yeah. So we definitely seem to have a lot of these up and comers on the roster. These guys that have made drastic jumps in just a few short years.
Right.
And pair that with a lot of older experience too. Woodley's definitely he's been around the water cooler for a good minute. So he definitely has experience coming from a lower level. And then, you have guys like Cox and Finney who just kept making leap after leap after leap after leap. So we could have some up and comers on the roster paired with experience. So I feel like that's
Mhm.
a very good mix of different things to have.
Yeah, definitely. Some newcomers, they all do have a lot of experience. A lot of FCS and lower level experience, but a lot of accolades in terms of Woodley and what he can bring to the staff. And same thing. I mean, with Phil, not Phil Parker, with Adam Cox having that experience under Phil Parker at Iowa. I mean, that like I said, what the Iowa defense could do, and same thing with Finney coming in. I mean, his meteoric rise, and they all have connections to each other and Johansson. And I think we're going to really see what Johansson's defense looks like because he's bringing kind of people that he's comfortable with, familiar with. And, they could, you know what I mean? It's kind of like we're going to have his defense at Rutgers. So it'll be interesting, right? And, and like I said, they were one of the top in the FCS in multiple categories. And I think in scoring defense, yards per game, and just overall defense, they were top 5. So, I mean, it's going to be exciting to see what they could do, at the Big Ten level. I mean, you have Big Ten caliber players, even though the portal cycle didn't really go as well as people hoped. I mean, these guys are, still at the top of their level, coming into the Big Ten now. So let's see, you have the players now. You have to shape them up into, becoming a unified, cohesive defense, and let's see how the staff can work that magic.
Well, actually, I wanted to talk to a little bit about transfers that we could possibly have coming in. Um, with with the South Dakota state, sorry, not state, with the South Dakota head coach departing for Rutgers, that opens up a window for South Dakota players to choose to transfer out of South Dakota. Since
Sure.
we grabbed their cornerbacks coach as well, I feel like that gives Rutgers a leg up at landing Mikey Nunn and RJ Stewart, who were both very good defensive backs during their time at South Dakota. Now, keep in mind, Mikey Munn is a sophomore, and Stewart is only a freshman. But you have to listen to these statistics. Munn finished the year with 5 interceptions, which was tied for best in the FCS. Sorry, he recorded a team high 10 pass breakups, 59 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and was named a second team FCS All American. While Stewart, who was a freshman, earned freshman All American FCS status. Recorded 54 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a forced fumble. So,
Yeah.
we need defensive back help just as much as we could possibly get it. If we could land either of these two, coming out of the portal, that's going to provide decent depth, and they're young, which is the big thing. They're sophomores and freshmen that just entered under Johansson's program when he was at South Dakota. Now, with their cornerbacks coach coming over to Rutgers and their head coach coming here as well, I think we'll have a very good chance at, getting these guys, bumping them up to the next level and, grabbing a couple more quality defensive pieces before the season starts. And I really wouldn't mind grabbing these guys from the FCS again, because if you really think about it, a lot of our players are coming from the FCS, and a lot of our players are coming from, lower levels.
Right.
Let's say, grabbing these 2 extra guys, let's say the corners that we picked up, one of them doesn't work out. Oh, well, we have this guy now, I feel like since we are taking a lot of these, could they work out? Could they not work out type, players? I guess can they adjust? We're taking a lot of players where we're questioning, can they make the jump to the Big Ten level? I feel like if you grab a couple more of those players, you're going to be more likely to have somebody ready to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think so, and especially like the two corners you mentioned from South Dakota, like all the stats and everything that you mentioned, like they
Look,
sound pretty good. So
because like if what I'm essentially saying is, we already grabbed, I think it was 3 cornerbacks in the original transfer portal, right?
yeah,
But there's no guarantee that any of those guys are going to be able to make the jump up to the Big Ten. If we land, if we land these two and somebody that we have on the roster already starts really struggling, or one of the guys that we are expecting to make the jump up doesn't quite make the jump up, we have other portal additions to be like, okay, this guy didn't make the jump, but this guy's doing better, you know?
yeah. There's nothing wrong with having good numbers, especially you're kind of banking on the three corners we have. The one from Maryland, and then Bradley Jones and Samir Dawood coming up from the Citadel and Villanova, and I mean, obviously they had really good stats and everything, and Jones is like a speedster, so there's potential in them. But what if like one of them doesn't work out or something? Like you want to have that
Mm-hmm.
insurance, like I don't know, you know what I mean? So, and especially these guys, familiar with Johansson, South Dakota kind of on the higher end of the FCS, like maybe you want to like give that a shot. I mean, like I know Villanova kind of is. Citadel, I'm not really too sure, but I know they've kind of pulled some upsets in the past over some SEC teams. But so I mean they're decent, but like I mean, again, it never hurts to have numbers when you make these in any position really, but especially at a one like corner where you're rotating guys in and out, and you're kind of banking on three guys that are
Exactly.
all lower level, or the one that doesn't forgetting his name exactly, but he doesn't really have too much experience, like playing so far, and yet, but I mean he does have some Power 4 experience, so but
Oh, you're talking about the kid from Maryland. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name.
I want to say
Yeah,
like Kevin something. I forget.
Hims, Kevin Hims.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Um, that's the kid from Maryland. He does have a couple starts at Big Ten level, but
right.
as we heard from our friends over at the Testudo Times, he kind of got beat out for reps, so like that's not a good sign.
Yeah,
Like he was getting beat out for reps at Maryland, and let's make it clear that Maryland's defense was not good last year.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's like very, very bad actually. I mean, like
much like the rest
just
of Maryland's team was
yeah,
not good last year.
yeah. I know. I was kind of wondering how things are going to work out over there when they were already not great 2 years ago, and then they lost a lot of their best players on both sides of the ball, their receivers and D backs, and I was just like, and edge rushers, and I was like, how is this going to work? Like they might not be very
And
good this season, and like just they started well, but like it got really bad. Like it got really bad. Like but, they
October Maryland showed
yeah,
up.
I think they went 4-0 and 4-8, 4-8 by the end of it. They lost to Michigan State, they lost to us. Like, they didn't really look good. But anyway, I mean, and then so yeah, I mean, I guess the point is if he couldn't really crack it over there, then that doesn't really bode well for
It
the
does inspire confidence too.
yeah.
It's just
I mean, like
it's
to be able
concerning.
to
It's
come here and
concerning.
like take over. I mean, even if he does, like, there's no guarantee that he's gonna really like shine in that slot corner role. And again, that's another reason why we need, like, the more the
Many
merrier, I
pieces we
guess.
can get.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So,
And since
yeah,
he's gonna be coming up from the FCS, they shouldn't cost that much in NIL to the point where we can't afford them.
that's true. Their budgets are probably gonna be a little bit cheaper, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, yeah, no, we'll see if we can go portal shopping and or with these guys. Probably a lot of them are also gonna want to follow Johansson over, um, to Rutgers. That's kind of how it works. You're familiar with the system, and I'm sure these guys, a lot of them, they want to make that jump up to the Big Ten level from South Dakota. So that's something that some you guys are probably thinking about NIL, a chance to get paid more, play at a higher level. Yeah, I mean, and then Rutgers is known as a place that sends, especially defensive backs, and I guess maybe now you could say running backs, but defensive backs to the NFL, that's kind of been their thing. So that's another reason. But now obviously it's up to Johansson and this new staff to really like, get back to that mentality, you know, and get Rutgers back to that defense that people respect and, you know, and know as, okay, yeah, you know, Rutgers is a defensive first program. They play like that. They've sent guys to the NFL. Like, you know, that's their identity is a strong defensive team. And now they have the offense around them on the other side that, you know, really brings out the best in that side that we haven't seen in years and years. So, yeah.
I don't know if necessarily it's going to be a complete rebound in the first year. I think it's foolish to expect that, but
Right.
to not see progress after how awful that defense was,
Yeah.
that would be surprising
I
for me
agree.
in particular.
I agree.
Um, just to kind of keep things rolling, we do have some other topics on the podcast that we definitely want to get to. Uh, kind of like the co-topic of this podcast, wrestling stuns No.6 Minnesota. Um, Remy Cotton pins his opponent in overtime to secure the win for Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights pulled off upsets in the 125 pounders, 141 pounders, and the 157 pounders, en route to their biggest win in a decade. Um, I don't really know how else to better highlight like how stunning of a victory this was, other than like I said, they pulled off 4 upsets in 4 different weight classes to take down Minnesota 23-15, and not to mention that Minnesota is kind of viewed as part of like the big three. I want to say in Big Ten wrestling, or they always seem to be one of those teams that is in the upper echelon of Big Ten wrestling. So yeah, I don't really know how else to highlight how big of a win this is for the wrestling program. Kudos to Scott
Yeah.
Goodale, who got his first really, really big win as the wrestling head coach in a long time. I know him and his boys have been pounding on the door, just
Mhm.
trying to get a really, really top tier win. They've always been ranked, but haven't been able to knock off somebody of this caliber. But they finally did it, and boy, does it feel good to be a Rutgers fan.
I know, just just what we needed too, right? Like after kind of the week we had last week, and talking about all the losing with basketball, and like we'll get to that in a little second. But I mean, yeah, no, I mean Rutgers wrestling, they've been pretty good, but not the best. You know, they haven't been able to get like the huge ranked win, and this was like they were saying the biggest win in like a decade for this program, and you know, in terms of like rankings and stuff. And yeah, I think Minnesota is part of the big three. I mean, they you know got upsets in the 125. 141, 157, you know, all good Rutgers wrestlers, but you know, Minnesota, you know, top like I think those guys are all like Americans,
Well,
George Volk, and
just
then
to kind of clarify a little bit. So the 125 pounder upset was number 28 Aiden Smith worked a 7-2 decision over number 10 Joe Volk. Like these guys are
right,
all ranked. But you know, for example, in the 149s, it was number 29 Andrew Clark over number 17 Drew Roberts. Like, yes, all the Rutgers wrestlers in these weight classes are ranked, but they're not as nearly high regarded as these Minnesota wrestlers. Or another example, in the 157s, Anthony White pulled off an upset over number 29 Anthony White pulled off upset against number 19 Charlie Millard. You know, it's not like these are just bad wrestlers who just happen to get lucky and pull off a stunning upset against, you know, um, a great Minnesota team. These are very, very good ranked wrestlers, just not nearly as highly ranked as their opponents were coming into this matchup.
yeah, no, exactly. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, all these Rutgers guys are ranked too, like Aiden Smith, and then Lenny Pinta, Dylan Shaver, getting bonus points. Andrew Clark and Anthony White both upsetting top 20 opponents there, so they're both ranked 29. So yeah, I mean, I see. Yeah, they're ranked, but they're not like as highly regarded as like you know the Minnesota guys who are like top 20. You know, all you know, some of them are
Did
all
you
Americans.
did you get a chance to watch a video of Pinto's pin and how crazy the rack went when he nailed that pin?
I think I saw the one with Remy Cotton pinning
Oh,
Giffen Nelson,
sorry.
the one that the
I meant to
overtime,
say
the
Remy
clincher, because
Cotton.
that was kind of like it was a overtime. I think that one, that was an
Yeah,
overtime.
yeah. I misspoke. I meant to say
Oh,
Remy Cotton.
yeah, that was the one that. Yeah, I mean, I think I did see the clip because it was posted on the Twitter and everything, and or it was on. I think it's even on Three's like Twitter, and I saw it, and yeah, I mean, the place erupted because that was the clinching victory because they were already up 17-12, and that was like the one that kind of sealed it for the Knights 23-15. So that was, and that's huge. Yeah, I mean, I think Minnesota behind Penn State and Iowa, like the top three Big Ten wrestling programs. Rutgers is kind of in the next tier where they're kind of always ranked but never really like among the top. So for Rutgers to get a win like that, I mean, that just like really like. I mean, that's huge. That was like that. Yeah, I mean that's absolutely huge. That shows Rutgers is like taking the next step up in wrestling. I mean, the whole thing has been they've always been a very good team. They haven't been able to beat the top teams to get a ranked victory. Not only did they get a ranked victory, they got a top 10 ranked victory in front of the home fans. And yeah, I mean, it's truly like incredible. And winning's contagious because right after that, gymnastics got upset over Maryland. There's just been a lot of, I mean, swim dive, like I think did pretty good. Chris Gotterup won in the PGA Tour. A softball won over Notre Dame for the first time since 2012. I've been working on my This Week in Rutgers Athletics. It's been taking me a while because there's just been a heck of a lot to talk about. But I guess my point is like winning's contagious. Like, now gymnastics won, softball won, both, secured upsets. But obviously the big, star of the show here is wrestling. I mean, getting a huge victory over Minnesota. And that was just truly incredible.
Yeah, I mean, especially for a program that, like I said, they've really been like knocking on the door for a good while now, just trying to get because they were always like that 15 to 17 range in terms of team rankings, falling against the number ones and the number fives and the whatever have you. But to finally get through and punch somebody above their weight class, it really is a special moment for that team, and congrats to them. And they do have some good prospects coming up, to my understanding. Controversial but good wrestling prospects.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up the episode on sort of a sour note here, as we have to talk about men's basketball and women's basketball, which have almost completely fallen off the rails. I mean, men's definitely looks better than the women's. I'll give them that. They seem to at least, play hard and play to win. Their last game, they played against number 9 Nebraska. They lost by 12, 80-68. Turnovers really sunk Rutgers in that game as they committed 9 more than their opponent. And again, this is not a team that can commit that many turnovers and be able to recover from it. They need to play an almost perfect game when it comes to, they need to play an almost perfect game from when it comes to hitting from the 3-point line, which they don't shoot that much from 3. So they really need to be able to hit them, and turnovers, because this is not a team that is going to be able to compete anywhere else unless they are very, very sound in those two areas. They need to fight for rebounds, sure. They need to compete in all the different, statistics. But the turnovers, if we have way more turnovers than our opponent, this team is going to get completely blown out of the water. 12-point loss doesn't scream blowout, but it's not good. Obviously.
I was kind of watching that game, like it was a little bit like, I don't know. They started well. They kind of fell behind like way too much, like at halftime, and then coming out of halftime, it got even like a bit worse than that, and then it was kind of like they kind of caught up a little bit in garbage time, but it wasn't really like a very competitive game after the first half. I think like it was kind of competitive, and
after the first 15 minutes, I would argue.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird one. It was like they were kind of okay, and then in the beginning they were pretty decent, but they fell behind 41-27 at the half, and then Nebraska pushed it to 19, and it was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is over. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. But again, yeah, Francis had 16 points. So Gene Powers is really becoming, like better, like a lot better. I mean, he had 14 points. He had 18 last time against UCLA. And Buchanan at 10-5. But I mean, Nebraska, they also dropped a couple games, but they were able to rebound. They've been having like one heck of a season this year. I mean, like for I think they're like I saw like they're the only program who hasn't won an NCAA tournament game. I mean, that's about to change. I mean, Nebraska getting off to 20,
well, you know what? With the way the tournament works, you
never know.
You never know.
True. It's March Madness for a reason, but I mean, the chances are they get like a 2 to maybe a 2 seed, 3 seed. Like, you can't probably not much worse than that. We'll see how things go. But
they could even still play for the 1 seed. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they can. I mean, they're definitely alive. If they win a Big Ten tournament like with a record like that, they have a really good resume. Yeah, I mean, they definitely should be. They definitely should be among the top teams. For March Madness. Yeah, I mean, well, they also dropped another one to Purdue, so it's like they're starting to like lose a few games here and there, but they're still a very good team, and they'll definitely have a high seed for the tournament no matter what. So I mean, we'll see what happens, but Nebraska is very good. Rutgers now, kind of has. They have like a little bit of an easier schedule. I mean, I know we were kind of talking about it, but they played a lot of tough teams, and now it's kind of like they have like an easier schedule to finish off the year. So there's chances for wins coming up. They have kind of an extended break this week. There's not any weekday games. They're going to be back in action on Sunday against Maryland. That's a team that's also really been struggling this season too. They both have two. Yeah. It's a home game on Sunday.
Yeah.
So yeah, Maryland has 2 Big Ten wins. They just beat Minnesota. So that's good for them. But like that's their second Big Ten win all year. Just like Rutgers, just like Northwestern, Penn State and Oregon have won. So there's a lot of teams kind of here towards the bottom. But there's 2 games against Maryland the rest of the way. There's 2 games still against Penn State. Coming up for Rutgers. There's one more against Michigan State. They have the Minnesota game and they have home versus Washington, and that's pretty much it. So I mean, but yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely chances for wins coming up, and we'll see if Rutgers can put it together. I mean, it feels like they've been close in some games and they've gotten blown out in others, and it's kind of been like a mixed bag. So it's like you never really know which one you're going to get. But against a team like Maryland, chances are they you know what I mean? Like they're not going to have to punch up to win the game. So you know what I mean? Chances are even if they're not in upset minded mode, they they'll be good enough to pull off the win. But there's also a chance that they don't play well and they lose. You know what I mean? So they should be able to win the game, or at least have a very good chance of it. Like without having to play up to the next level, which they've had to do for like a bunch of games now. But they still can't come out flat and lose the game, obviously. So you know what I mean? There's a good chance that they like that they can pull it off, but they're still going to need to play their best basketball, obviously, to get it done.
Well, to be fair, I think if they come out flat against like a team like Maryland or a team like Penn State, I don't know what I'm going to do at that point. That's just
too much. Yeah,
because I don't know what is going on with Maryland, but they went from being really good last year to just
really good. They made like the Sweet 16 last year, actually. I think so.
Yeah, I never seen the team fall apart like that.
They had like Derek Queen. They had they won 2 March Madness games. They lost to Florida, who ended up winning the whole thing. Did they?
Yeah, but that's like you lost the team of destiny. Whatever. I never thought. Oh wow! Okay, well Maryland actually leapfrogged Rutgers in the standings.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, this team's like really good, and then this year they're like really really bad, and it's like I was saying in the all season, I was like, what is going on with them? Like they were like not beating anybody of substance like at all. You know what I mean?
But Maryland pulled off a victory against Minnesota, so they actually jumped Rutgers in the standings.
Yeah. That's true, actually. So, well, Rutgers has the opportunity to get one back over them, I guess, if they can, win. They have 2 games, so like they'll get to really duke it out here, starting Sunday. But yeah, and then they have another one on March 1st, coming up at the end of the slate. So I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting, right? Like what's gonna happen between these 2 teams, because again, like neither of them have been playing particularly like well or getting that many wins. Maryland's actually coming off of one. They have Iowa today, But then for Rutgers, it's like, like I said, like they've punched up and they've almost beat Michigan State, almost, came close to being USC in a comeback. Then they let down against UCLA. Nebraska, they just didn't hold with their water in that one.
Penn State actually beat Minnesota.
Yeah, I saw that too. Minnesota's been dropping.
Yeah, Minnesota's that's just really bad.
Yeah, losing both of those two teams. That's not.
Wait,
but they also upset Michigan State though. So like
yeah, I'm looking at this like
that's funny, right?
They lost. This is the timeline, right? They lost to Penn State, they beat Michigan State, and then they lost to Maryland.
That's like the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
That is 3 games in a row. Like
what? That's ridiculous. It's like they saved all their energy for that one game or something. Like
that is so funny.
It's like the anti Rutgers, because I bet you like Rutgers would like never do that like in any sport, like probably like know what I mean. They play to like their expectations to like the T, you know what I mean. So like they're not gonna like lose to the worst team and like beat the best team the next week and then lose again.
No, that would never happen.
That never happened here. So like but with that being said, Maryland is a team that Rutgers can't beat, and as long as they play up to their ability. So I mean hopefully they win that one at least, because that's the home game. And if Maryland wins another one, maybe they can get both. We don't know how that's gonna go. But I think Rutgers has been playing with enough life overall recently that there's potential for them to get a win over Maryland. And I don't know, ticket prices will be dropping again for this one. Like, might be a nice one to get into. I don't know. We'll see about that. But should be a good time. Yeah, I mean, other than that, yeah, I mean, women's basketball also was kind of competitive in their loss to Minnesota too. I mean, much more competitive than we've seen.
Right?
Sorry?
Big step up for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, like since the Penn State win on the 18th last month, it was just brutal loss after brutal loss. Like, Michigan, Washington, or Oregon, just deflating. Like, really didn't come out for quarters at time. USC was just like, I don't even know what was going on there. They're 71-39. UCLA, obviously, really good team. They've lost one game all season. They're 86-46. Then they come out against Minnesota. They're leading. They're tied after quarter one. They're leading at the half. They played a really solid game. Third quarter, again, is where kind of the wheels fell off the wagon. I was covering this. I mean, first of all, like, I think Imani Lester wasn't playing. They didn't really have the size to compete with Sophie Hart down low. She was getting fouled a lot. She had 17 points. Maura Braun, she had 2 threes, and I mean, she like intercepted a pass for a layup. So she had like 8 points in the third quarter that like carried Minnesota to a bit of a lead. I was really impressed with her. And then Tori McKinney also hitting threes, scoring layups. She had 16 points for the Gophers. So between the 3 of them, like, that was kind of enough to overcome Rutgers, because even with Maya Battle and Grace Grokowski, like 2 of their usual leading scorers, didn't have that many. Although like Battle had 8 points and 8 rebounds. Grokowski just had a really off day shooting. I guess she's usually like their leading scorer. 7 rebounds, 3 assists, but the other 3, Hart, Braun, McKinney, double digits. And Rutgers only, so they kind of had 3, people going for them. Rutgers only had like 2. Nene Nadaye, or Njai. I mean, she had a career performance with 26 points, 5 for 9 from downtown. She was just on fire in the first half. I mean, she was just knocking down 3 after 3. I mean, pushed the lead to 6, then it got cut to 3 because Minnesota hit like a buzzer beating 3 on the other end. But she was just knocking down shots. She was, scoring on the interior. I mean, she just she had a terrific game. I mean, she was just like a heat check. And Zakara Perkins also had a really good game too. She was making a lot of layups. She was efficient, 7 for 11, 18, 5 and 5. So she was like all over the place. But again, other than those 2, there was just not much at all. I mean, Janae Walker at 4, Kayla Ivey at 0, who's usually a reliable scorer, pretty reliable. Swan at 2 and Bates at 2, and nobody else scored. So it's, again, you can't, even though Minnesota was kind of mainly relying on 3 players and they still had some from the bench, Rutgers was really relying on 2, and that's just not gonna, they had, 2 players had 44 out of your 52 points. And again, that's just not gonna get the job done. So, but, much more like competitive game for Rutgers than we've kind of been used to like seeing out of them. And I mean, I think that's that's a good thing. Obviously, like I didn't think that this team would really come to play. Like after kind of that trip, they absolutely did. But they eventually Minnesota like that Braun run really kind of put them away, and they weren't really able to come back. But I guess Rutgers has kind of found their groove at least for and now they go to Purdue, who's another team that isn't really too much better. They have 3 wins in conference, and they go to Illinois, who's has 6 wins, 7 losses in the conference. So a little road trip out for this Valentine's Day weekend. But yeah, I mean maybe Purdue's a game they could steal on the road if they if they play well. But I mean there's not really too much confidence in there. But after a game like that against Minnesota, like where they play competitively against a solid team, that Minnesota's 18-6. They're like kind of on the upper end of the Big Ten. So I mean, that's a good sign forward after really demoralizing stretch, a bad homestand, a bad road trip. You come back and you play while you're winning at halftime. That's a good boost of confidence. Now you go to Purdue, Illinois, see what you could do. You have Penn State and Indiana, who are both towards the bottom of the conference as well, coming up after that, and yeah, and then you end the season at Nebraska. So we'll see if Rutgers can sneak their way somehow into the Big Ten tournament, because they're going to need a couple more wins here over these teams if they want to do that.
Yeah, I don't know if they're necessarily going to sneak their way into the Big Ten tournament. They found a way last year by knocking
They
off
did.
Penn State twice.
Yeah.
That was it. That's all they did.
Yeah. They made a nice little run in the whatever it was, NIT or like the
WNIT, but the
yeah,
problem
or
is
the BIT. It was like
is
I think it was like the 3rd string bracket, like behind the NIT. But within that, they went all the way to like the grade 8, and then they lost to Buffalo. So they kind of again started knocking off
but the problem is the WNIT is like the third tournament rather. There's the women's NCAA tournament, and then there's another one which is considered above that. I forget the name of it, and then it's the WNIT.
Yeah.
So the WNIT is kind of like the crown, if you think about it. But
yeah, that's the BIT. I think is better. I think
BIT, yeah.
Right. Yeah, because Minnesota ended up winning that one. And then Rutgers was not in that one. Yeah, they were in the. I think they were in the WNIT. I want to say, and then they ended up kind of going on a little long run. And yeah, they ended up beating teams at home, teams that had better records than them, but they're also playing in easier conferences. But then they
played
they kind of
Army and Buffalo,
yeah, that's what it was. I think they lost to Buffalo at the end of it, but they beat Army, they beat Charleston, they beat some other teams like that, and some of those games a lot of the games were at home until they went to Buffalo for that Elite 8 game or whatever it's called. So yeah, anyway, I guess my point is they made a run. I don't know. Chances are maybe they could again if they end up getting selected for a tournament like that. I feel like this year's women's team's even worse than the one from last year. So I don't know, but chances are they could. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Big Ten tournament, it doesn't really look like they're gonna make it at this rate. I mean, they're second to last right now in the standings. They have 1 win. Penn State now has a win, but there's a chance because I mean they have Purdue, they have Penn State, they have Indiana, they have 3 winnable games now in their last 5. But I mean they're gonna have to do a lot of the winning. I guess
Who did Penn State beat?
They beat somebody. Purdue in overtime.
Isn't Purdue really good?
Not in women's, in men's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, yeah, they've been playing better as of late, I think too. And Akumi McMiller's really been balling out for them. So she had 30 points in that game, and then Merkel at 19. So they're not they have a lot of offense, but I think their defense is what's been killing them. Their defense has been really bad. So and then Rutgers is the opposite. Their defense isn't really that bad. Their offense really hasn't been producing. And the first meeting between them, Rutgers won 76-72. So we kind of saw that played out in Happy Valley on top of that. So, but I don't know. I feel like Penn State's playing a little bit better, as of late. So we'll see. And, I don't know. We'll see. But so if Rutgers can turn things around here, get a win at Purdue, and then, hopefully a win over Penn State. I want a 10 because, I mean, I feel like that could definitely happen. Indiana, another team they've kind of been on a down year. They're usually pretty good at women's basketball, but I don't know what's exactly been going on. But they also got a couple wins lately, so they've been put their best foot forward too. So So
So
yeah,
what
I
I'm
mean,
what I'm hearing is that if Rutgers finds a way to squeak into the Big Ten tournament, we should give Washington a 10-year extension.
I mean, I don't know about all that, but like, I mean, because it does look like Indiana's been playing better as of late. Penn State looks like they've been playing better as of late too. At least somewhat, but not like great or anything. But McMillan, she had 37 in the last one. Like she's really been like going off. So I mean, even in the game against us, like she had 27. But Merkel at 21. Outside of those two, like. You don't really know what you're getting. But yeah, Penn State I think has been looking better. I think Indiana women's basketball has been looking better. They're winners of 3 straight now in the Big Ten. And then Purdue, they've not really been looking that good actually. So that's might be the exception to that rule here. So they have 4 losses in a row. So hopefully Rutgers can pick them off. They're on a 6-game losing streak themselves. But last time they played a team like that, Northwestern, who's on I think like a 10-game losing streak, really bad. Northwestern blew them out of the gym. So I really, there's no like consistency here. Like you really don't know what you're gonna get, and that's obviously the most frustrating part with the women's team. I feel like, and like it's just demoralizing, and it's like the second you think they're picking it up, like it kind of goes away again. So, but then you know what I mean. So I don't know. I really don't know like what we're gonna get, but if they can pull off some wins, then there's a chance that they make the Big Ten tournament.
Well, we told you we were going to end the podcast on a sour note, and we did exactly that. Yeah, the women's team seems to be in almost near complete disarray. It's hard to see Washington surviving the season. Hopefully, that they get string together a couple more wins for the sake of the girls on that team, just to give them a little something. Obviously they work hard,
Mhm.
they play hard.
Yeah.
They we want to see them win. We want to see them win because they're wearing the Scarlet R. But that pretty much does it for everything that we have here today. Thank you guys for sticking with us for another hour. Um, you know, give us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe to our YouTube, give us a like. It really does help us out. It takes 2 seconds to do any of these actions, and it has a gigantic impact on everything that we do here. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, remember the bells must ring.